Okay.
There we go. Excellent. Well, again, glad to be with you all. So I think most of you are familiar with the League of Conservation Voters. As Susan was saying, we're a national group. I'm down here in DC for our lobby days. I had Hill meetings yesterday. Senator Sheen's Business Day. Had meetings with Bureau of Ocean Energy Management leadership this morning, and over at the White House this afternoon with the Council for Environmental Quality. Talking about a lot of priorities, including things in New Hampshire that we are working on. But this event tonight really is focused on elections and what we can do to work together to elect champions. If we at LCV, although we work very diligently on policy, we have a very robust policy shop in DC, and certainly around the country. We have 35. We're active in 35 states. We work very actively in the legislature with our friends at Clean Energy New Hampshire and other groups in our space to make sure that we can lift up our priorities. But none of this can really happen unless we have elected officials at all levels of government, local, state, federal, who share our values. And that is one thing that we are very much about. So most of the time at LCV, we operate in our climate action program phase, which you're familiar seeing us at things like Concord Market Days and many other events around the state. And we convene events, many with our partners around our congressional delegation that lift up their work and things like investments that are coming down through the IRA and things of that nature to make sure that people understand about that. But when it comes to election years, we flip over into what's called Green Roots, which is our member mobilization program. And we get our staff, we have a full-time staff here in New Hampshire of 10 folks, including me. We embed ourselves into the campaigns of the candidates that we have endorsed. Now, the Green Roots program is primarily a federal program, meaning that we are working with our federal folks that we have endorsed in this cycle, president, vice president. We are very committed to reelecting Congressman Pappas. We obviously have a very competitive primary. It's going to be quite competitive in the second CD. Not getting involved in that, but we will on September 11th for the primary. But we, even though that's a federal program, it does have positive effects on the state level because our folks are working out offices and getting our members, of which we have thousands across the state, thankfully, to come in and do shifts, whether that's phone, canvassing, help with events, carry the message in any way that we can in terms of the candidates that we have endorsed. And so that's the federal side. And we will be flipping over into our Green Roots program about August 15th or so. And so we look forward to that. And then on the state side specifically, we have a political action committee that's registered with the state called Responsible Environmental Protection for New Hampshire. And we've been quite active the last number of cycles in terms of raising funds, both certainly nationally from LCV and other national partners, as well as locally in New Hampshire, to support those candidates, state level, state representative, state senator, executive council, governor, that support our values. Obviously, this year it's a very important year. And I think that there's a high possibility of creating a pro-environment majority in the New Hampshire House. I think the Senate is interesting as well. I could see, frankly, where we might be able to get to a 12-12 Senate. Beyond that, it's very difficult because of redistricting. Executive Council, we have some interesting candidates running. Those seats have been, as you well know, severely redistricted. But we'll see what happens at the top of the ticket with the presidential race. I think that, can really be helpful. I do expect that President Biden will carry New Hampshire. In my view, it is more of a question of what the margin is and how that can be helpful down ballot. Donald Trump has never been particularly popular in New Hampshire in terms of general election performance. So keep that in mind. governor's race. Obviously, we have an open governor's seat, and it would be obviously enormously helpful to have a supportive governor in that office. It is probably the one thing, along with more folks in the legislature, that would make a real positive difference for us. But I think we have a strong opportunity there to elect a pro-environment, pro clean energy governor. So we will be very active. We've already started making contributions to candidates, particularly in the state Senate level. We will be working diligently on the House level to target the resources that we can most effectively. Because again, the only way to make true progress is to elect champions at all levels. So this year is a signal opportunity to do that. In addition, I am working on some messaging points around clean energy and climate that have come out in some measure by a focus group that I've done with a number of legislators in terms of how, asking them in their view amongst their constituents, what do they see as effective messaging around clean energy, whether it's reducing costs, whether it's creating economic opportunity for communities, creating jobs, clean water, clean air. So that will be forthcoming very soon as well in terms of some product out of that that would be, I think, helpful to candidates. I do think that the public health aspect is particularly effective in terms of messaging in our state. I think that people are quite pleased that we have this PFAS funding regulations coming down from the federal government finally. I think we can amplify that, but I think that really is an opportunity to use that platform to continue to talk about what can be really useful. We're excited, frankly, about the future plans for things like Merrimack Station in Bow and Schiller Station. Portsmouth playing a role in clean energy transition, and I think that is something that it's a success story that is much yet to come, but the commitment has been made, and I think that that's something to really echo in terms of something that can make a difference for people and is real. As you know, very involved in offshore wind. We need more support amongst various sectors in New Hampshire so that we are a true partner in that effort. But I think we can be, but it's going to take more commitment and frankly, new political leadership to make that a reality. So that's also something that we're intensely involved in and want to make sure that happens. So we are, as I said, very involved. We're going to be very involved in this election cycle financially. We will have events. Actually, we have 2 house parties that are on schedule. I'll send this around, but we expect to have 6 or 7 gatherings around the state under the auspices of Responsible Environmental Protection for New Hampshire to raise money for our state ledge candidates at various levels, in addition to the fundraising that we're continuing to do, and the resources that we are forthcoming to us nationally. That's kind of in a nutshell where we are. I have to say, I cannot stay the whole time. I actually learned earlier today that I am invited to be elsewhere this evening down here in Washington. When you're down here, things happen, you run into people, and as you well know. So I'm really glad to be with you all this evening, and looking forward to working with you all on these very important topics on this very important election year.
You're mute, Susan.
Yeah. So Rob, thank you so much. We are so lucky to have you with all the strings you know how to pull, and please keep us informed along the way. And I just want to make sure that it's clear to people that Rob and also 350 New Hampshire, and we also have the addition of Kent Street Coalition. They are all in positions to do things that are partisan and do involve money. And then you're going to hear from groups that are nonpartisan. And now Tracy Hahn Burkett just discovered recently that she can join us. She's here from Kent Street. I'm wondering if I can sneak her in before we get our before we hear from Chantel and Tracy, can you share the screen? Do you have share screen ability?
Actually, I don't. I am technologically hobbled right now.
Okay. So
I just arrived. I'm on the road this week, and I just arrived at my host's house about 20 minutes before this began, and I couldn't get my computer to join the internet, and my phone thinks that I am driving.
Okay.
So
Well,
this
we're
is the
happy to
best
have
I
you.
can do.
Okay. No, we're happy to have you. Please share your phone.
Sure. My name is Tracy Honbercat, and I am on the leadership team of the Kent Street Coalition. And we are an all-volunteer progressive organization, and we are the largest grassroots organization in New Hampshire. And I have to correct one thing. We actually don't work with money. Everything we do is volunteer. And so all of the things that I'm going to tell you about, we are doing sometimes. Some of us kick in a few dollars here or there, but it's really all just people power is the way that we work. And so we are right now we are pretty much laser focused on the upcoming election. And the reason for that is because we view every issue, including the environment, is going to be affected by the outcome of the election. And so while we have not discontinued our regular work, and we have working groups that work on a number of various issues, and we are continuing that, really everything is at issue or at risk, depending on how the elections turn out up and down the ballot. So we're going to be rolling out in about a week and a half a movement for a program for democracy. I'll save the name for our rollout. And basically, I'm going to tell you about the things that we're starting out with. We are providing as many ways as possible for people to get involved and encouraging as many people as possible to get involved, because there's a ton to do between now and November 5th, because we think it's important that people understand, that the public understand what's at stake in this election. And certainly, and I'm not telling anyone here things you don't know when I say the environment, the future of the environment is at stake. I think there's a lot of voter and public education to be done. And if we don't go out there and do it, then who's going to do that? It's the activists, it's the people who care, who have to go out there and do that. The question is, how do we do it? And who does it? How do we get people to do it? So here are some of the things that we are working on using our experience from past elections and in past public policy work. These are the things that we're doing. First of all, we have in past elections done canvassing. And so we are going to use our experience to send people out there to canvass in key state and local elections. Well, I guess state elections, really. A lot of people think that they don't ever want to knock on doors, and that's understandable. But we offer people who want to do this in targeted races. We offer training. We team you up with people who know what they're doing and make it much, much less scary than it seems. So that's an opportunity to get involved. And for people who really, really, really don't want to knock on doors, we have support roles you can play, like driving people from door to door, so they can canvass. We will be working with other organizations to help with voter and election protection. There are roles that are specifically for lawyers. There are roles that are not for lawyers, because it's important to protect people, make sure that that things go at the polls the way they're supposed to go. We have a really dynamic postcard operation. In this case, we're talking about writing to voters about the messages that need to get out there. We have sent tens of thousands of postcards to people
talk to there
over the years. And so we're going to be harnessing our postcard team, and we hope more people will join our postcard team in service of democracy. We've got letters to the editor campaign ready to go. We have a lot of experience doing that. And we are actually about to get that started. And that's going to be focusing on various issues, and people can work with them as well. We are introducing a new program of official Kent Street Coalition house parties on behalf of candidates, so that people can, if they're not endorsing specific candidates, but so that people can come and meet certain candidates and get to know them and ask them questions and have sort of a two-way interaction between candidates get going. Just to give people, to get them comfortable with candidates, and they can challenge them with questions and just have some two-way conversation. And then we're also looking for people to come to us with ideas and to say, hey, you know what, I have graphic design skills. Is that something you can use? Which just hint, it is actually. So things like that. And that's just what we're beginning with. We're rolling that out in a week and a half. And after we get all of that going, then there's going to hopefully be a phase 2 later in the summer. So if people are looking to get involved in ways that will support, the environment and every other issue that people care about, that's what we're doing. And like Rob, unfortunately, I'm going to have to sign off as well, because I've just arrived at someone's house and I said hello and then disappeared.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And like Rob, it sounds like there is a multiplicity of ways that we can log on to Kent Street and find out ways that we can participate. And thank you for your leadership role. And Kent Street, by the way, is the largest grassroots organization in New Hampshire, which I believe. So thank you so much.
Yes. Oh, and let me say, if anybody has any questions or wants more information, you can go onto our website or our Facebook group. You can also email me at Tracy, TRACY, KSC for Kent Street Coalition 24 @gmail.com.
And also you can send questions to us and we'll pass them on to our speakers. So that also can help. Okay, and I need to pass it on to, thank you, Tracy. Thanks so much. Chantel Ryu, who is from 350 New Hampshire. She's organizing director with 350, which focuses on climate justice through grassroots organizing. And they're building the movement for climate justice with campaigns like No Coal, No Gas, Utility Justice, and the electoral program pushing for local and national systemic change. So thanks so much for coming on, Chantel.
Thank you so much for having me and inviting 350 here tonight to speak. I'm going to share my screen. I have a little PowerPoint. It's a little fun, but just to kind of sum up what I've been up to. Can everybody see that all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Move this little utility bar real quick is in my way. All right. So Susan just introduced me. My name is Chantel. It's really great to see some familiar faces and to meet some new people here tonight. I'm going to dive right in. Here we go. One of the first steps that we have in our electoral plan is to endorse climate champions. We just today actually dropped our endorsement questionnaire and also a nomination form. So if someone who's not a candidate would like to nominate, or another candidate would like to nominate somebody who is active within climate legislation or interested in being active within climate legislation, we encourage them to nominate candidates that are running for office. This year, our main focus is on the State House and Senate. There is a possibility, and we're playing it by ear with CD2 and the governor's race. I think that there was a lot of excitement behind Becky Whitley, and since she has stepped down, it changed our plans a little bit with CD2. So a lot of the focus is going to be on the House and Senate. And we don't really focus federally. Sometimes we endorse, but this year it doesn't look like we are going to endorse federally this year. 350 New Hampshire personally, not personally, but the organization. This questionnaire is very thorough, and we ask the candidates fill it out as detailed as possible. It does also require, endorsement does require the candidate to sign our no fossil fuel money pledge, which is essentially saying that they promise they won't accept money from the fossil fuel industry or any of those companies like Eversource. So that is our first step right now. Second step in our efforts turns to our C4 campaigning, canvassing efforts. We have a group of summer interns and this year paid canvassers that will be going out and knocking on doors every week, a couple days a week. They will be knocking for our endorsed candidates. They will also be knocking for our current utilities campaign, and they will tie in after the primary. So that was really exciting that we got to bring on some paid canvassers this year and be a little bit more involved electorally than we have been in the past. Although we have been involved, I think it's just like on a bigger scale, which is kind of exciting. I come from working with the Democratic Party for 6 years, so I'm glad it's not as crazy as that, but I'm excited to be involved. We are also, as well as our climate champions, we're also keeping a very close eye on the climate deniers in their towns around the state. Unfortunately, they do fall in pretty red districts, so we can only do so much, but Michael Vose is pretty much on our radar at all times, so we'll see what happens there. We're going to do our best to try to help make sure, there's someone running against him, and doing what we can to support in that capacity. Following that, we will be linking our utilities campaign with the election, like our electoral campaign. While we are out canvassing, we will have we're working on language currently on a new petition, since Sununu is not running again. Our focus is shifting on utility rates, specifically speaking to electric and heat, and kind of just making sure that Eversource is making the right decisions or they don't always, but we're holding them accountable is what I'm looking for. So they kind of go hand in hand. We will be if we're having great conversations on the doors about our climate champions, we will then present the survey and talk about the work we're doing with utilities. That kind of sums it up. We're going to be participating heavily with GOTV, Get Out the Vote, prior to the primary and the general election, specifically again for our climate champions, our endorsed climate champions. We have on our website a volunteer interest sheet, and so if knocking on the doors is not your thing, there is plenty of other things that we could use help with when it comes to data or social media or making phone calls even, because texting, everything. So if you're interested in learning more, you can visit our website and do that, or you can reach out to me at my personal email. It's just Chantel@350nh.org. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Again, thank you for having me here, and thank you all for being here.
Yeah. So Chantel, it's just so amazing how you're a young organization and you've grown and become so strong so quickly. And in case people couldn't tell from the pictures, 350 is really harnessing young people. But I'm sure they'll accept some of us folks that are not as young, and we can be intergenerational together. So
That is the idea, Susan. We have a very young base, but that is also, I think the idea with the interns is they really want to reach out and connect with the generations like ahead of us, so that we can all come together. So that has been an effort on the interns' part for at least the last year that I've been here. So I love to see that. I think they met the Clamshell Alliance last year and had the best time at their retreat all together.
wow. Well, thank you so much for telling us the opportunities that you can provide. And now I'm going to rush over to Paul Fredericks. And Paul is a retired family doctor, Paul Fredericks, MD, volunteer board chair of, it's now called New Hampshire Healthy Climate, formerly known as New Hampshire Healthcare Workers for Climate Action, which is an acronym, would probably sound something like a good sneeze. And it's an organization committed to educating our communities about the real impact of climate change on the health of New Hampshire citizens. And so, Paul, you can hit share screen, and I know you've got some slides to show us.
Okay. Thank you. It's lovely to be here. It's, by the way, the last name is Friedrichs, by the way. We'll
Oh.
get used to that eventually, but Paul Friedrichs, yeah. So NH Healthy Climate, we've been around coming up on our 3rd year. We've done a lot. We have working groups in policy and advocacy, children's health, communications and education, behavioral health, and climate justice. And this is our initiative coming out of the policy and advocacy group. And we're looking at 2 things. One is to offer gubernatorial forums, as it were, after the primaries. We're going to invite each of the gubernatorial candidates to come and give a webinar. Will allow them to state their position about things based on the topics we've asked them about, and then we'll have questions to ask them. But it won't be a debate, just an individual webinar per candidate. So that's one initiative. The other initiative that came out of a NH Network retreat is to really ask that our members and all of the network's members, including all of your members, if you're in a different organization, really talk to your members about making sure that they go speak to their candidates, especially at their local town forum, candidate forums, and ask pertinent environmental and climate questions. We are a New Hampshire focused organization, and we would love to see that the New Hampshire legislature, in particular, the New Hampshire House, in the re-election, give a majority to environment and climate-oriented representatives of whatever party. But I think that a lot of the bills that are important to the environment and to climate have come up just a little bit short, and we need to shift that. So we'd like to get everybody out into their towns at candidates forums so that those questions get asked and townspeople realize where people stand about that. And one way to do that, actually gonna go to sharing now, is, the New Hampshire League of Women Voters has a website that they list candidate forums. Is this coming up, Susan? Screen share? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So not much is listed here yet because it's early in the season, but you come down here and they've got listed, things happening in these towns and what have you, and there'll be a lot more. And the other way to find out about your local candidate forum is to call the town clerk's office and find out about that, because I think they would know what's happening in terms of these different forums. But get out there, get the local people in town thinking about environment and climate as one of the important issues to vote about. So I have some sample questions to share, and Susan, if you could put those up. I'm going to stop sharing for a second here. But this is just, and we'll make these available to everybody. It's a Word doc, but this is just to get people thinking about types of questions you might want to consider Um, uh, Actually, I had some other ones since that one, but that's fine. So, think about how it's affecting our state, our economy in our state, as well as our health, and have focused questions about that. How's it affecting our winter tourism industry, and what are we going to do about that, and the costly recovery from extreme weather events? What about the health to our citizens via vector-borne illnesses, air and water quality, heat stress, and food reliability? Uh, does the candidate believe that New Hampshire legislature should address the production of greenhouse gas emissions that are fueling the well-documented climate changes we've been seeing in New Hampshire? Don't let people be climate deniers. Tell them it's well-documented and ask them what they're going to do about it. Point out that as predicted by scientists who study climate change, we in New Hampshire have seen a 75% increase in storms with more than 2 inches of rain in 24 hours, and other examples of extreme weather. And if elected, how would you address this increasing risk to our homes, roads, bridges, and businesses? Can we scroll down, Susan? In central New Hampshire, we've seen a doubling of days with a heat index over 90 degrees since 1980. How should the state government respond to the increasing number of high heat days and their potential impact on the health of New Hampshire citizens, particularly the young and old? What role do you believe that individuals, corporations, municipalities, and state government have in slowing the observed changes to our climate? Which can have the most impact? What would you like to do to address this? What role do you think the state government should play in helping New Hampshire residents to become more resilient in the face of weather emergencies and effectively plan for them? What specific programs or policies would you support to address the impact of extreme weather or climate change? You can, okay, do you feel the New Hampshire legislature should play a role in promoting clean energy and the electric grid upgrades that would be required? Do you believe that our state PUC may need clearer guidance from the legislature in assuring funding for energy conservation through weatherization programs, i.e. New Hampshire Saves, and promoting clean energy source development? And do you believe the state should take action to promote the development of offshore wind energy in the Gulf of Maine? Or more specifically, do you believe in man-made climate change, and what are we going to do about it? So we want those questions asked publicly. We want them asked in every town around the state and impacting every House election in the state. And I think that can make the difference. I'm going to, if you can unshare, Susan, I'm going to ask for one more share opportunity here, because I just wanted to point out some very helpful information. Let's see, is this it? No, that's not it. Maybe, oh, that is it. I'm sorry, I'm gonna come here and then go here. Okay, this should work. So just today, is it coming up as climate change in the American mind? No?
We're seeing June 27, 2024. Oops.
Share screen. There we go. That's it. Okay. This should come up now. So just today, the Yale program on climate change communication, June 13th, 2024, hot off the presses, published this survey of what they felt were representative sample of the US adult population. They sampled 1,031 people, and they used 896 responses from the registered voters. You had to be a registered voter to qualify. Broke down as 47% Democrats, 37% Republicans, others independents or not politically involved. And I think there were more Democratic responses because they were probably more willing to participate in the survey. But very interesting information. 62% of registered voters would prefer to vote for a candidate who supports action on global warming. 39% say a candidate's position on global warming will be very important when they decide they will vote for things like that. John Gage, you'd be very interested. 74% support regulating carbon dioxide, the primary greenhouse gas, as a pollutant, and 66% support transitioning the U.S. economy from fossil fuels to 100% clean energy by 2050. So there's a lot to drill down on. I won't try to share more, but I encourage people to look this up. through the Yale Program in Climate Communication website. They participate with academics from George Mason as well, but they've come out with this report, Politics and Policy. It's definitely worth looking at as you plan your approach to what kind of message you want to shape. One important take home is that a majority of people do feel that clean energy is going to provide better quality jobs than fossil fuel energy. So we're beginning to win the economic argument, although only 39% of voters had heard anything, and not very much, about the IRA. There was still a lot of ignorance about what the IRA is doing. When they were given more information about the IRA, that increased the people who were in favor of what the IRA are doing. But the feeling is I think Biden's message is getting across that clean energy jobs are good, high-tech, good jobs, and that people are looking forward to a vibrant clean energy economy in the future. So that's one thing to pound hard on, I think, in the political message, is that clean energy is the future for economic success in New Hampshire. So thank you very much. I'll end there.
Wow, Paul, oops, thank you so much. And I need to also tell everyone that this evening is partly Paul's brainchild, and he's been a sort of unofficial board of director of one for New Hampshire Network. So thank you in many ways. Now we're on to Mary Beth Raven. Oh, Paul, can you unshare?
I got to get my mouse to work to get up to stop share. Here we go.
Okay.
All right, so.
And Mary Beth, I have your slides if you want to rely on me.
Okay.
Okay.
I am going to be speaking about the Environmental Voter Project.
Oops.
Oops.
Okay, come on now. Why is this not? There we go.
All right, so the Environmental Voter Project is indeed a project that identifies people who don't vote and non-voting environmentalists, and then tries to turn them into voters by calling them, canvassing, and sending them postcards. And these slides will go out, and that's a link to the website. I also typed the name in the chat. You can Google Environmental Voter Project. Susan, you can go to the next slide. What's different about this project compared to, I think, almost every other speaker here tonight is that the Environmental Voter Project is nonpartisan. They identify people who are registered to vote, and then through data link them to, like, maybe they're in Sierra Club, or maybe they joined something else, or they use all sorts of data to identify who they are and simply write to them and ask them to vote. It does not endorse any particular candidate. So when you are writing or calling, you are not asking them to vote for anybody. You are just asking them to vote their conscience regarding the environment. I have been a volunteer. I have done calling, and I have done postcard writing. So there are three things that they do: is canvassing, but they're not going to do any canvassing in New Hampshire, calling, and writing postcards. You see here this map that they're active in 19 states, and New Hampshire is one of the states that they've been active in, and I have participated with them in the past. And you can see that since 2019, they've contacted over 61,000 voters, which is and turned out 1.9% more people to vote. And of course, we don't know who they voted for because that's private, but we do know that they voted because that's public record. And if they care about the environment, chances are they voted for a lot of the people that all the previous speakers tonight are endorsing. And you can get involved. And Susan, it's very easy. You can go to the next slide. You can go to the environmentalvoterproject.org and sign up to participate. If you go there now, you will not see any specific New Hampshire actions listed yet. But I wrote to Nathaniel Stinnett, the guy who's in charge of it, and they are organizing several waves of action here in New Hampshire. Before the primaries, They're organizing making calls to low voting climate voters between August 21st and September 10th, most likely at the gubernatorial and congressional District 2 level. And then after the primaries, but before the general election, they plan to have another big calling blitz starting October 22nd. It's they're not organizing any canvassing here. The only thing they're doing here is calling. However, if this appeals to you, because it's something that you can do from home, you don't have to go canvass. And I like it partly because it is nonpartisan and because you're not necessarily endorsing any one person, you're just asking them to go vote. And you can sign up to call, canvass, or write in any other state. So if you go to the Environmental Voter Project website now, they have a bunch of different projects going on in other states like Arizona. You could get your feet wet, see how you like it or not. But we would definitely love to have you sign up when you see it. So in a couple weeks, there will be signups on that webpage to sign up for these New Hampshire actions. And that's it.
Okay, and I neglected to properly introduce you. Mary Beth is a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, where she and I just spent the last few days, and she's a member of New Hampshire Network Communications and the steering committee. And when she's not working on climate issues, she has a full-time designing software for a high-tech firm. And I am going to put you on the spot, Mary Beth, because someone else who is just lobbying for Citizens Climate Lobby in Washington, D.C., John Gage, was going to present, and Washington made him sick. He caught COVID. And so he's given us a slide, but
Oh, no.
I know he's not up to talking. So I'm wondering if, here we go. Mary Beth, do you want to talk about any of this?
Sure. For those of you who don't know, speaking of nonpartisan organizations, Citizens Climate Lobby is a volunteer organization that is nonpartisan. Don't be scared by the word lobby. Yes, we turn you into a lobbyist, but you are not paid and you are nonpartisan. And the purpose is to lobby our members of Congress, primarily at the federal level, to pass laws that we think are good for the climate. So there's a bunch of activities training that CCL does about bird dogging, which is going to these events and asking questions, and standing up in front of the candidates and asking about whether they support climate and what plans do they want. So many of the same types of questions that Paul has mentioned before. Are there any other slide builds on this, or is there? You're muted, Susan. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things, like, for example, an election season tabling kit, where you can table at events, and John even tables on election day far enough from the door with signs to talk to people before they go in to vote about what the environmental issues are locally and things like that. And here are a couple of the climate kind of conversation questions that CCL recommends, like, will you work toward meeting our greenhouse gas reduction goals? And will they hold the fossil fuel industry accountable? Things like that. So Citizens Climate Lobby, again, you could type that into a browser. And once you type in your address, it could point you to our local New Hampshire chapters. And once you get these slides, you don't have to join CCL to take advantage of all this wonderful training and other media type kits and other kits that you can leverage.
So I'm going to take it over from there, but just want to point out that this Climate Voter Information Project, again, goes through the how-tos of just about everything we have and will be about to talk to you about. So really great resources. And we will have this presentation on our website. So everything that's going too fast now, you can look at and cogitate a bit later. Okay, and Mary Beth, thank you. And thanks for stepping in for John.
No problem.
Okay, now how do I don't know how to help me, Mary Beth. How do I make this go to my next slide? Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry, this is tricky. We are deputizing everyone that is on this call to be part of a network election force that is going to operate town by town. Your jobs will be to interview candidates, can be like a real one-on-one kind of thing, check on voting records, communicate your findings, arrange a candidates forum, and we've got some help about that, or Bird Dog, wherever you hear they are talking. Get involved with posters, emails, flyers, and I'm going to end with some messaging. So to some extent, I'm just reinforcing what you've been hearing all evening. Interviewing candidates ahead of time, find out if you'll be able to share your results on your town's website or cable TV or public access TV. You're going to have to interview all the candidates for the office you choose if you want to remain nonpartisan. And hopefully you're going to work with League of Conservation Voters. I don't know if I missed that slide, but you need to remain completely neutral and pleasant. Establish a relationship. You never know who's going to be the next representative, and you want to have a relationship with them, even if it's not the person you were hoping for. Decide on a few useful questions you'll ask every candidate so that then you can really compare them apples to apples, and ask the questions that matter to your community. Climate is a local issue. And then whatever you find out, share on future email networks, printed material, LTEs. And, you know, if you use a grid format, it doesn't have to be voted for this, voted for that. It can be, this is their response to this question and that question, and then same thing for the other candidate. Now, let me just make sure, did I miss something? No. Here we go. What types of questions? Oh, I really am missing things. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop sharing for 1 minute and see what's going wrong here. I think I'm going to make you look at my whole screen because I'm losing stuff. Sorry. Here we go. So what types of questions? The values, the world that we leave our children, clean water. So those are the big value questions that everyone wants to hear. But then also the very specific. What do you plan to do about PFAS cleanup? Landfill sightings, severity of asthma, more renewable energy. You know, you can start with really open-ended. Is this an issue you've been thinking about? But then drill down if you're a moderator or having an interview. So what exactly would you do about it? But don't do any gotchas or anything really technical. Don't you agree that the FERC should, because your audience won't know what a FERC is, and it will just create a hostile situation. Okay, next slide. Choose a few useful questions for every candidate. What is in your background qualifies you for this position? Name 2 things you hope to accomplish, but do ask the questions that matter to your community. What do you think the people in our community view as a threat to our environment? How would you approach this problem? Are there ways you could work to lower energy prices for the people in our community? Or we're losing tourists because no snow, no charging stations, pick your favorite problem. You may want to talk about voting records. People have emailed me about that. The problem with that is that not all the candidates will then be on an even playing field. So you'll have voting records for anyone who has voted, but not for others. But even so, if you want to pursue it, go to GenCourt State NHUS. And for both the House and the Senate, you'll see roster. And in the House, there's a category, discover a town or city's representative. And under Senate, it says, who's my senator? And for both, when you get to that person's page, you'll see a place that says voting record and bills sponsored this session. So that's good information. If you have to do an everyone on equal footing, I'm not sure how you'd use it, but I'm sure you'll find a way to make it useful at some point when you're canvassing. And then if you want to know of the 1,000 bills that came up this year, which are the environmental bills that are priority, you could go to your favorite environmental organization, Land and Lakes, or Clean Energy New Hampshire, or New Hampshire Network, or Bill Actions, and look for either what were the bills those groups highlighted, or we simply say priority support, priority oppose. Okay, and I'm definitely losing up. Somewhere I wanted to tell you about League of Conservation Voters, but I think I lost it.
If I can interrupt you for just a hot second,
Yeah,
Susan.
yeah.
We also did our Beauty and the Beast that recording that is available on the New Hampshire Network website that folks could definitely check out relative to that as well.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. And that just tells you what are the really critical bills that we were worrying about at the time. Okay, I have lost a slide, not a surprise. So I'll read what's on here, but then I'll go back and tell you. This is communicate your findings, maintain a neutral stance, maybe the grid format, and look for listservs, town publications, public access TV, LTEs, or if you can swing money, create a flyer or do postcards. And a postcard could be, really simple. Here's some issues and come join us, or, Bob said this and Susie said that. What you're missing is the postcard about how to do a forum. And, oh, here it is. Silly me. Here's the picture of the forum, in case you didn't know why I had a picture of buildings. Arrange a candidates forum. You want to do this with others. Don't do it yourself. League of Women Voters, and that's their Gmail. Email them and ask them for their guide, and it will tell you everything that you need to know. But also, I just learned from John today, this wonderful address for Citizens Climate Lobby, their resources, almost not all the same, but more real good information. If you're working with League of Women Voters, they require all candidates for a given office to be included, including independents. So check with your town office to make sure you got everyone. Other possible sponsors, your town hall, your community center, a faith group, community college, a service group such as Rotary, or Citizens Climate Lobby. So again, check with your town. Do they know if a forum is happening? Find a location first, and then find out what the available dates are for that location, and find out what works then for the candidates. If for some reason you cannot get hold of a candidate, just make sure that you have that documented and let people know that that person was invited and declined to participate. Must be nonpartisan, same questions for all, no personal attacks. Really fun idea I just learned this weekend. Is there a local personality who would moderate? So a CCL, like Citizens Climate Lobby group, had the local weatherman moderating. So then the TV station came and filmed it, and then it was on TV that night, and everyone had a great time, and it brought in a big audience. So I guess we only have WMUR, and I don't know how far that one person will go, but find a personality. Maybe it would be a favorite high school teacher, but that could be a better draw than some nice League of Conservation lady like me that everyone's heard yap a lot. Okay, you're going to need a timekeeper with red and yellow cards to signal how much time people have. Better to have teamwork. And maybe instead of the usual, 4 people on a stage, have a speed dating format where people sit at their separate tables and the candidates circulate. And that is then much more open-ended, or you can have a moderator at every table, but people can form a real intimate relationship with the candidate, and it turns out everyone feels like they really got to know each other better. So that sounds like a fun way to change it all. And then new idea, bird dogging, which we talked about. Just make sure your questions are concise and focused, that it is a chance to inform the listeners, including the reporters. Don't be technical, no acronyms, no ISO New England. Personal stories are good if you can keep it short. You might get your message into media coverage for the campaign. If you have some accomplices in the audience, then, oh my goodness, everyone's asking environmental questions tonight. And if you're talking to a candidate for statewide or national office, let them know the issues that matter to your community. If you want to get called on, improve your chances of getting called on, get there early, stand near the front, make eye contact with the candidate or moderator, and raise your hand with speed and vigor. Effective messaging. This is mostly from Amplify New Hampshire, which did a poll statewide. So this all really applies to New Hampshire. Asking, what are your top 3 priorities? About 34% across the board, Democrat, Republican, said protecting our air, water, and land for future generations. So additional high priority items were mostly economic. You can link conservation of land to that. Rising costs, needing more jobs for the new green energy, growing the economy. That's a way to link it. And also you can link fears. People are priority fear. I don't have health care. I might have unexpected health costs. Prices are rising. I might lose my job. So you can connect protecting our air, water, and land for future generations with the possibility of this new green economy with the many jobs that we are already seeing coming to us. Values. Align your values with other people. 98% said we need to invest in our state so New Hampshire is a place where our children want to and can afford to live. 93% agree we need policies that create opportunities for our children to have good quality jobs where they can support their families. So the more you can link to family, community, and conservation, the more you can create a bond with whoever you are. Yeah, this is not so much with your candidates that you're trying to discern where their policies are, but more with when you are canvassing and you're not quite sure where someone comes down, and you want to make sure that you get past any partisanship that could divide you. You want to be able to ask, how do you want to leave the world for your children? Also stress, we don't want to lose what we love. People like me are being affected. I used to skate on the pond and ski in the winter. These are days, they're days when the kids can't play outside. So the idea of losing what you love is also a real strong message. So words to use: safe and clean energy, conserving the outdoor way of life, protecting New Hampshire's environment and natural resources for everyone to enjoy. And when you go to talk about the bad stuff, call it pollution. Oof, this pollution is really bad for my daughter's asthma. Don't use the word climate unless you're really sure of your audience. Crisis, threat, death of the planet. So just try and stay positive. That is it for me. I think it's time for some advertisements. And then if anyone still wants to stay on for questions, we can. June 26th, the aftermath of fast fashion, how discarded clothes impact public health and the environment, with Dr. Julia DeVoy. And you can register for that at our website, newhampshirenetwork.org. And then August 24th, our second annual Keep New Hampshire Green Environmental Summit. And it sounds like it's doing a lot of the things that Rob talked about, that we hope to bring people together to say, what are the actions we can all work on? Last year, we kind of networked and got to know each other, and it was really encouraging and exciting, but this year we want to be focused on action. And again, go to New Hampshire Network for that. And we're hoping that some of you will help design the agenda for that event. So here's newhampshirenetwork.org is where you go to learn more. And that's where you can find out about other events and our working groups. And I'm going to stop sharing. If anyone is still on this call and wants to ask a question, I'm going to let Reinmar handle that while I do some chat comments. So thank you, Reinmar.
All right, very good. Anybody have any questions for any of our speakers or anyone else? Not hearing anybody. Anybody in the chat? I don't think there's any questions in
No.
the chat actually either.
Well, what happened is that there are so many amazing events happening tonight. And a lot of people at 6:30 jumped off to hear Rebecca Perkins Coca. So if you don't have a question, you can go over to Kent Street and hear Rebecca Perkins Coca talk about the New Hampshire election. Oh, one new message. Who do we have? Oh, there we go. Thank you. And thank you to our presenters. They were wonderful. And lots that we all can do if we just don't sleep. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, everybody.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Group,
See you
group.
again.
Well, keep up the
See you
good
again.
work, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Paul.
And Army
Awesome
of
job,
Love.
guys. Thank you. We'll talk soon.